Hello, and welcome to the Designing with Love podcast. I am your host, Jackie Pellegrin, where my goal is to bring you information, tips, and tricks as an instructional designer. Hello, instructional designers and educators. Welcome to episode 82 of the Designing with Love podcast. I'm thrilled to have Patrick Williams, who is passionate and inspiring public speaker. He's also a consultant, writer, artist, independent scholar, and a visionary educator. So I'm thrilled to have him with me today. Patrick has over 4 decades of experience teaching and facilitating deep learning to a wide range of audiences. So I think that'll be really beneficial to all my listeners today. Also, Patrick is a TEDx speaker and an award-winning artist. He's exhibited throughout the USA, Japan, and China, which is amazing. In addition, his art is in public and private collections, and he's been represented by galleries in Chicago, Seattle, Omaha, and Albuquerque. In addition, Patrick holds black belts in karate with decades of experience in training and teaching. And I just love that. That's wonderful. So what I'm excited about, Patrick, is your creativity and your innovation. So welcome to today's episode.
I'm happy to be here, Jackie.
Great. Thank you. So to start, I gave, quite a bit in your introduction, but can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe something that I didn't mention, and what inspired you to help others in their creative pursuits?
Sure, I'd be glad to. I do consulting as a creativity expert, and that's with educators, businesses, entrepreneurs, and folks who are interested in restoring their creative awareness and those abilities. I'm living back in my hometown, which is kind of new. Well, we've been here for a few years, but my wife and I moved back a few years ago from Boulder, Colorado. We miss the mountains, but it's definitely more affordable here in the Midwest than it is up in the mountains.
Right, exactly. That's great. So you love being back home and having that, being back in the mountains and surrounded by nature. That's beautiful. I love that too. I love being in nature and being surrounded by that. There's nothing like it, right? Being in the mountains. That's wonderful. Great. So I noticed in your profile that you describe creativity as kind of a superpower that we all have. And I love that description. So even if we feel like we've lost touch with it, how do you like to explain creativity in a way that helps people see it as something anyone can tap into, not just artists?
Sure. The core of my philosophy is that we're all born creative. We learn through play, imagination, and creativity. And so we have it within us. It doesn't ever go away. We sort of misplace it or lose track of it, but it is always there. And we may not be specialized in parts of creativity that all of us identify as being obviously creative, like being a painter, a choreographer, a composer, an architect. All of those things are obviously creative, but all of us, because we practically did nothing else but be creative when we were children. So up until the age of 5, 6, 7, we're just creative explosions happening all the time.
Right.
And we're, as adults, even though some of us sort of move away from that, it's still inside. It can't go anywhere. So part about what I do is help people restore that rather than them finding it, because it's already there. They already know what it is. They already know how they relate to creativity. So it's just a matter of assisting them finding those threads back to their tapestry of creative energies.
Right. I love that, because as children, we have that curiosity, we're asking questions, right? And then that ends up fostering that creativity in us. And then as we become adults, we almost feel like, oh, I know what I need to know. But it's always good to have that curiosity, even as adults, right? And sometimes think like a child would think and say, okay, how would a young child approach this? And I think that's the beauty of it, right? Like you said, we never lose it. It's always there, and it's innate in us, and being able to bring it out and not suppress it, I think, is always important, because Yeah, we're finding now, especially with technology, right, that sometimes people can lose that. They feel like they've lost it, even though they really haven't. And I think it's important that the technology not take over that creativity, and that we maintain that integrity of it. For
Absolutely.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so
Technology is a
important.
tool.
Right, right.
My paint a paintbrush is a tool, just like a computer is a tool.
Right.
And if we keep that in perspective, then we're going to be a lot better than thinking that it's smarter than us or can do things that we can't do. It can do things faster. Computers can, but not like we can.
Right, exactly. I'm wondering too. Have you seen in the different creative fields, like the arts and this and things like that? Have you seen different technologies like AI? Because I've read articles from actors and from artists that they're scared about what's going to happen with AI as it gets better and better, and that it's going to like clone them and all this stuff, and
Mm.
and take over like the work. And I'm like, well, I think as long as we understand what its capabilities are, I think we can mitigate that. But have you seen kind of that fear come about in people that you've worked with about the technology and
Oh, for
things like that?
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've read it's a core interest of mine in general, but also as it relates to the arts.
Mm,
And that's a giant conversation, sort of a rabbit hole to go down with respect to the limitations, the mathematical limitations of AI.
right.
That the people who talk about it are marketers, basically. If they're
Right.
saying it's going to cure every known disease or solve every problem that humans have ever made, that's just marketing. They're selling a product.
Right.
There are things that AI can do really well, and there are a lot of things that AI can never do and don't do very well. So for me, I believe that the more and more I'm aware of how people are attempting to infiltrate the arts with computer programming, the more that it actually makes us as artists stronger, because those of us who are fully in tune with always being ourselves rather than using that as a tool to make art, that's a benefit for us. We
Right.
will have the stamp of authenticity, maybe the human stamp of authenticity.
Right.
Everything I'm doing is human made. It's from me. And some galleries are actually having people sign sort of it's not actually a non-disclosure, it's a full disclosure statement that what they're making is only from their self, their human beingness. So I think
Okay.
it's going to cause a lot of trouble and a lot of disruption. There's a lot of stealing happening, basically. So just even a large language model, if it writes something, it's stealing all of those words and putting them together from other words that are out there. It's just the next best probable word is what the large language models do. And a more invasive is the visual images that are made, because they are truly stealing imagery from other artists and incorporating them into the image. So there's
Wow.
lots of there are a lot of famous anime artists that are really causing uh, a lot of pushback, because they
Mm,
see their work not changed that much in images that people are using as AI generated. So the
wow.
pushback is happening, and we will. It, it a lot of people were talking about the death of painting in the 1850s, 60s, and 70s because of photography, but 100 plus years later, painting is still alive and strong. So
Right. Yeah. I think that's important to note because, sometimes with technology we think, oh, we're it's generating something, but you're right. It's searching what's out there and then it's generating it based on something that's already out there. Same thing with writing too. So always good to be aware of that and know what it's capable of and what its limitations are and how we can put those guardrails around it and use it in an ethical format. So that's something I teach my students every day. Use
good.
it, yes, but use it ethically. Don't expect it to do your work for you or things like that. And make sure you cite it if you're using it. Make sure you
Right.
cite it. So that's important. Yeah, I love that.
Totally.
That's great that you mentioned that. So we talked a little bit about earlier about how those different tools, right? Like a paintbrush and computer and things like that. So many of my listeners are in education, business, or even instructional design. So sometimes in those fields, creativity feels like a tool we have to use rather than something we naturally have, which I hear a lot. So what's one or two simple things you think people can do to reconnect with their creativity and keep it flowing in their everyday work and life? Hello, I have some exciting news to share with all of my listeners. There is a feature called Fan Mail. What this allows you to do is send me a text message anytime during the episode. There's a link located at the top of the description in each episode, and it says Send Jackie a Text Message. So when you click on that link, you'll be able to send me a message letting me know what you thought about the episode and if you have any ideas for future episode content as well. I look forward to seeing your text messages. Thank you.
Sure. The number one, well, maybe not the number one, but I feel like it's important now, especially having just talked about programs and screens and that world, is to get outside and sit, preferably in nature, and that's a fuzzy term. Being in a city, it's a little more challenging to be in nature, but a park, a little patch of green with some trees, that's nature. Get out, take a walk, sit on the grass, take your shoes and socks off, put your feet on the ground and do some balancing, grounding, it's called. And simply breathe and allow yourself to notice what's around you. Notice the grass, notice the trees. What kind of birds are you hearing? Are there any other things happening? Are there squirrels or whatever it might be? Just notice how nature is all around you and how creative nature is. It's just, again, like a child, it's just exploding with creativity. So it's both, it relaxes you and it rebalances you, and it will invite you to start to be aware of those inner places that are creative. It gives you a moment to contemplate the things that you may have just been working on, whether you're stuck or not. If you're stuck, that's one thing. If you're not stuck, going out to nature is going to help also. But it's going to be a place where you can interconnect feelings and ideas in a more relaxed way than at your desk or in the meeting or in the studio or wherever you might be and whatever you might be doing. It helps you reconnect to a slower but also a more vibrant environment that has a tremendous amount of creativity zooming around you. Even though it may be quiet, there's still a lot of creative energy that is present. So nature is a huge part of it. And breathing. Just take some time, even when you're at your desk and things are a little bit crazy, just push away from the desk, sit up straight, take 10 breaths, just tell yourself to relax and just take a moment and then move back into what you were doing. You're going to move back into it with a bit more relaxation, a bit more openness. And that's where the creative qualities start to come in from. That when we're not so busy in our minds, we're able to be more open to new ideas, wherever they came from. They come from everywhere, and we just have to allow ourselves and invite ourselves and give ourselves permission to receive a connection between these ideas that we've had with this project, whatever the project might be. But there's all these ideas zooming around in our mind, zooming around on paper. We have a whole bunch of books around us that we're looking through. Take a moment, step back, and let a lot of those ideas swirl around and see where they land. A couple of them may land together over next to a rock, and that rock may be in the shape of something that will spark something and then go from there. But it's allowing ourselves to be open is super, super important for everybody, all of us, to gain access to that core creativity that we have inside of us.
I love that. Wow. Yeah, those two connections, nature and breathing, are so important. That's something I like to do too. And especially if you're feeling overwhelmed and stressed, the breathing really helps. It helps, like you said, kind of relieve that, get you grounded again. And maybe if you're stuck on something, then it can help kind of, break that block that you're having. So that's great. Yeah. And that kind of goes into, part of the next question I was going to ask about if we're stuck or we want to be able to get that creative block kind of out of the way. So you've developed some really interesting terms like creative collapse and creative metamorphosis, which I love those types of terms. So could you kind of talk a little bit about what those two terms mean and kind of how they help us to get unstuck when we have something where we're having that creative block with us, or just trying to come up with new ideas that are
Totally.
that are at the forefront?
For sure. Before creative collapse is something that I've described as creative colonization, which all of us have moved through and experienced in our younger lives. And it happens out in the world, it happens at home, but sadly, a lot of it happens within the school systems that we existed in as children. And so creative collapse or creative colonization is how children experience a sort of invasion into their inner space of play, creativity, and imagination. So the way the school systems are set up is a heavy academic aspect and less play aspect, to put it in simple terms.
Right.
So there's a lot of academics going on with children, and there's less and less play happening with children. And sadly, the administration of education has been moved away from people who actually know how children learn. So it almost has become more of an MBA sort of viewpoint of how to produce these children who are quote unquote good at learning. And those folks, they have no blessings to them, but they don't understand how we as human beings learn. And we learn through play, imagination, and creativity. So ideally in situations before kindergarten, and for sure the first 4 or 5 years of elementary school, a huge part of the day should be playing. And what people don't understand is that when children play, that is when they're absorbing all of these lessons. They're figuring out how to communicate with each other. They're figuring out internally what math concepts are and how to use them in an actual real life environment for them as children. How that it relates to children very differently than it relates to adults, for sure. Their play looks different than adults' play does, when adults look at children playing, they think that they're just messing around. And
Right.
in some respect they are, but they are learning. That is how we learn as human beings.
Mm.
So creative colonization is the process of that. Those three elements, play, creativity, and imagination, being pushed out. Just as a colonizing force comes into an indigenous area and takes over the language, it takes over the customs, it takes over the spiritual beliefs, it takes over what people do as what they would do in a regular day. They put them in a factory rather than allow them to do what they were usually doing, whatever that may have been before they were colonized. So, and
Right.
it's an intense term, but I chose it because it's a very invasive thing that happens to us as children, and we don't understand it. What's
Right.
going on? Why? I just want to go out and play. So
Mm.
there's a colonization that happens, and at some point during the colonization, the creative colonization, creative collapse happens. That's when it could be a specific incident that the teacher told me something, or my aunt told me something, or my grandfather told me something, or somebody out in the neighborhood told me something about how I sang, or how I played the violin, or how I was drawing, whatever it might be, and that just stops the child in its tracks,
Mm.
his or her
Wow.
tracks, and they don't do that creative activity anymore. They stop drawing, they stop dancing, they stop playing music, they stop singing, they stop playing with blocks, whatever it might be. That's creative collapse.
Mm.
And sadly, it often happens to last a year, 2 years, 10 years, or people's whole lives. But that
Wow.
doesn't mean that you can't find that creative metamorphosis, which is the act of a person saying, "Oh, you know what? When I was 8, I was starting to write poetry. I think I might try that again." And starting to write poetry, and that might lead them actually to making pottery, because poetry led them back into their creativity, but then they saw a pottery class and I want to do that. So
Wow. That's
entering
great.
our creative awarenesses when we were children doesn't necessarily mean, oh, I'm going to make paintings, or I'm going to play the flute, or whatever it might be. That might be the impetus to get back into their creativity, but it might lead someplace else. So, and that's what we need to be open to. Creative metamorphosis is always open-ended. But we need to follow what our hearts are interested in. If your heart is interested in making clay pots, awesome, that's great. Follow that.
Yeah. I love that. Wow, that's great. That reminds me, you mentioned playing the flute. I used to play the flute when I was in grade school, and it's funny because I wanted to just go out and play, so I did different things, like, trying out tap dancing and ballet, and some things I wasn't as good at, so I was like, oh, I'll but I did the flute for a while, and I've been thinking about that the last several years. Maybe I should get back into it, because I do remember the way my music teacher taught me. Now I don't remember the notes. I'd have to relearn the notes, but I remember how to hold the flute. I remember how to blow, and how to do that, and how to it comes in 3 parts. I remember so well how she taught us how to, she just started with the first part and then added on the next. And then we learned the keys and the notes. And then, she put on the last part. So, she went in steps and taught us that way. So yeah,
Perfect.
I love that. Yeah. And then in high school, I took a pottery class. And so I got to do that. And so I agree. I think it's something that, the arts needs to, it shouldn't be pushed off to the side. It should be something that should be encouraged, right? And
Totally.
yeah, absolutely. I love that. And
And
when I was a kid, yeah, go ahead.
I want to emphasize that even though we're talking about the arts, which are super important, and it's a
Hmm.
way that people can get back into their creativity, but it's
Right.
my worldview of creativity isn't only about the arts. It's about how we engage our lives. We can bring, and we should bring creativity to our relationships. Whoever that might be in your world, how can I make this relationship better? What can I do? What are something special that I can do that will help blossom this relationship? Creativity enters into our workspace. You're in many levels of creative necessity with the podcast, but also teaching. Those
Right.
require similar but very different qualities of your creative energy. Of how do I explain this to my students better than I may have done in the past? What are the things that I can think of that are going to help them with this particular coursework? Or in the podcast, how do I make the podcast better? That's an ever-changing, always evolving process of equipment or recordings or the intro, whatever it might be. There's always little things to apply your creativity to. So I emphasize with folks that we can see how we are creative in the arts. That's a no-brainer, right?
Right.
But in our life, it gets a little trickier to notice how we're creative. Take a different way to work, drive a different route. It might take a little bit longer, but that will spark, you'll notice something. It's like, oh, wow, I want to go to that store, or I never knew that there was a park there and it has a waterfall or whatever it might be. And you can go sit by the waterfall and that may give you some new ideas. So
I love that.
Doing these things in our life that shift us will bring new creative qualities into our life. It will help us with our business. It will help us with our relationship. It will help us with every aspect of our lives.
Wow, I love that. And I like how you bring up the relationships part too, because, the key to a successful marriage or successful relationship with someone else is to be able to keep that creative spark going, right? And do new things together and discover, so those things that maybe you didn't do together before, or discover your interests that you each have, or maybe something that, oh, you know what, I never really thought of something we could do here, or, and travel to new places. I think it's wonderful. And then that way you can discover those things that you may have not known about that other person, right? That
Exactly.
you're like, wow, that's amazing. And then you get to, explore that together, and that brings you closer and brings your relationship to a whole new level with that. So I love that. That's great. I always like to even do like creative things with my partner. He's serving right now overseas, but when he comes back, I actually am putting together like a really nice dinner for him, and I'm planning the menu. I'm utilizing a little bit of AI just to kind of see what I can do, but I already have an idea of that, and it's kind of giving me some creative ways that I can present the menu and kind of print it out, and here, maybe you can use some of these colors that are kind of a little bit subtle, and you can do like a little recording of your voice, and maybe a digital card that you can tuck under the menu or under the plate or something like that. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is great. So it's kind of sparking that creativity of like, oh, what can I do to surprise them a little bit. So those are kind of neat. Yeah. So and then it's kind of helping to spark that of how can I, really make it special. Yeah. So that's
awesome.
Great. I love that.
Great to hear.
Yeah. That's wonderful. I love that, how you're taking it beyond just what we naturally think of, but in all areas of our life. Yeah. Even driving a different route. I love that. Those little small adjustments that we can make. Yeah. It makes a huge difference. Wow. That's great. I love that. So as we wrap up, what advice would you give to listeners who are interested in starting a creative project, maybe writing a book like I'm doing right now, or something else they've been dreaming about, but they're not sure how to take the first step?
Sure. One of the main things that I always talk to people about is journaling. And in two levels. And people may feel overwhelmed having two journals, but I think it's important. So if if there's only one journal that you can do, having a personal journal is super, super great. On top of that, if you want to start exploring your creative possibilities, restoring your creativity, you can do that in your personal journal for sure. But having a separate creative journal where you go through all of the idea, if you're just starting, it's a place for you to reflect on how you were creative when you were a child. List all the things that you did either after school, on Saturday and Sunday, or through summer and winter vacations. Whatever it might be. It doesn't matter what the list is like. Everything you can imagine of how you played, what your imagination was like, what did you spend time thinking up in your mind, and write it down and reflect on it. After you get a list, let's say you did play with blocks as an example. Well, what did you build when you played with blocks? Did you do it just by yourself, or did you do it with friends? Did the blocks then evolve into Legos and then building things outside? What were the feelings like? What were you thinking about? And that's going to lead you into places about creativity that would be unnoticed if you weren't spending some time sitting and just thinking about it. And people are very busy. Even 5 minutes in the morning, or 5 minutes, at some point during your day when you just have a little bit of time, pull out your creativity journal, make something special about the cover of it, paste something on, glue something onto it, or just draw on it, or whatever it might be, just so it has a little different vibe, and then jot things down for 5 minutes. And then, maybe a month later, you might think, you know what, I need to spend just a little, I'm going to double that. I'm going to spend 10 minutes on my creativity journal because I'm having a lot of new ideas and I'm seeing some things that I hadn't seen before. I'm having more insights, and then jot those down and have it with you. There's lots of journals that are just tiny.
Real tiny,
you can stick. You can stick in a pocket, in a purse, and whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So have
keep it
that
on.
with
Keep
you.
with you. Yeah.
Yep. And just have it to jot things down. But also notice as you're starting, even if it's just a personal journal, start to really tune into what you're feeling, what you're thinking about, where your mind goes when you daydream. Daydreams are super, super important. They tell us all kinds of amazing information. We're not wasting time when we're daydreaming. We're actually getting information. Why was I thinking about that? Or why did that just pop into my mind? That is useful information somehow. We don't know how. We don't know what it's going to do, but it's going to do something. So a journal is a place to jot all of those things down. It's an external memory, so to speak, which is, I think, it's super useful for folks. I have my journal here with me. It's always around, always ready for jotting things down.
I love that. And I love being able to have two separate journals, the creativity journal and the personal journal, because the personal journal can be something where you're writing down your different thoughts, right, overall. And then the creativity journal is more specific for that. Maybe even like just, if you see something, like you said, you can even like draw it out or chart it out or something like that.
Totally.
So it doesn't have to be a certain way. It just, whatever makes sense for you is what really helps.
You could have a podcast journal.
Yes, I love that. Yeah. And just kind of get those audio
little notes. You could have it right there off to the side and just jot a few things down as it's happening in real time. Because for me, sometimes if I don't write it down, it's gone. So, and I literally have thousands of these little pieces of paper that I have notes everywhere in my studio. So I love that. It's always useful to jot little ideas down, draw a
Yeah.
little something to help you remember, however it might be.
Yeah, especially in that moment as you're having that, because you're right. You can, because like you said earlier, we're so busy, and if we think of something and then we go to do something else, that might just be in the abyss and just be gone. And then we're trying to think, what was that I was thinking of earlier? And then all of a sudden
Yep.
we're like, oh no, I don't remember. Yeah. Or we only may remember a little piece of it, and then most of it's gone. So, and that's kind of a tragedy,
Totally.
that can happen. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it is.
I love that.
My wife and I have we have D&D in the evening. We call it Drinks and Dialogue. So we get together and we talk about our day and what we did, any things that, my wife Rebecca did, things I did, and chat. And we have a D&D journal that we keep. When ideas come up, we jot them down, and that has been super useful.
Oh, wow. That's great. So it's a shared journal then that you can both jot things down together. I like that.
Yep.
And that goes back to the relationships and keeping the relationship strong, and being able to share those ideas. So not only are you talking through it, but you're able to write it down and keep it in a place where you can go back to it. So I love that.
Totally.
Yeah. So it's not just in the moment, but it's something you can go back to and say, oh, you know what? We talked about this 2 weeks ago and we jotted it down, and now let's maybe we can pursue that and act on it. Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's great.
Yeah. We had our 25th wedding anniversary 2 days ago.
Oh, congratulations. I love that. Yeah. That's great. So you were able to draw upon some of those past conversations and writings to plan your 25th anniversary, right?
We did a few things. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's neat. And so it brings it to fruition. So it's not just an idea, but it actually becomes something that it's a lived experience, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah. Wow.
Exactly.
I love that. Great. Anything else you can think of that you think would be really good for people as they're kind of trying to recapture that?
I would say, well, one of the things I have teams do, and this is just good for all of us, is to pick an event for either yourself or your partner, whoever it might be, your family, whatever, of a different type of art event to go to once a month. So let's say you think of, okay, let's go to an art gallery or a museum this month. And then next month, go to some kind of music, whatever it might be. And maybe pick something that, if you're not interested in jazz, maybe pick jazz and see what that's like. Because it's gonna do all kinds of new things for you if you're not used to it. Then the week after that, maybe go to a dance a recital, maybe a music recital after that. Maybe go downtown and look at 5 buildings that are noted, that are special buildings in whatever town that you live in. And, small towns may have less, but sometimes small towns have some pretty remarkable buildings. But look at the buildings.
Yeah.
Notice what kind of stone are they made out of? What kind of windows do they have? What shape are they? What do they look like inside? How is it laid out? Does it make sense? Is it weird? Is it confusing? Is it confining? Is it open? Whatever it might be. A church may be part of those buildings. Experience and then compare, how did the municipal building or the courthouse, there are some things that were just like the church. Everything will spark you in different ways.
And
and maybe go to a poetry slam or a poetry reading the next month. So be inventive. Get yourself to be in unusual or things you like. That's okay too.
Right.
Situations where you're able to experience something together. You can do it solo if that's what you want to do, but doing it with a group, doing it with your partner, that's fine. But just be in some place new, and that it pushes your comfort a little bit.
Right.
So
Yeah.
not something outrageously scary or disturbing or not very much fun. Sometimes that's useful, but
Right.
just to be outside of your usual choice of what you would do. Maybe go see a classic movie or a film that is somewhat inaccessible to Netflix or HBO
Mm-hmm.
or whatever that you've heard about, and it's playing downtown at the
Yeah.
indie theater. Citizen Kane, just comes to mind. It's a Orson Welles film. It's sometimes
Right.
rated the greatest film ever made. Go see that and see. It's like, what do they mean it was the greatest film ever made? I didn't like it at all. Or you may love it, or you may love parts of it. And there's so many things that can assist in if it's simply you and your partner, like the conversation earlier, you're going to find out things about the other that you had no idea. It's like, oh, you love that Citizen Kane movie. Why did you love it?
Mm-hmm.
Or so having these art experiences just gets us into the energy of how the artist is thinking and feeling and what their life is like and how that can inspire us. I get inspired from musicians and from dancers and from theater and from architecture and all levels of music. So it's necessary to have those interactions that spark
Mm-hmm.
each of us in different ways.
Right.
We don't know how it's going to spark us, but it will certainly spark you.
Oh, I
So
love
I
that.
encourage
Yeah.
people to get out and just experience some new adventures.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and even in the workplace, as you mentioned with your teams, you can do those things too. We do that with my department because we work remotely most of the time. After COVID happened, we all got sent home, and like a lot of companies, but we work from home full time now. But we do have conferences every quarter. And so we actually have one coming up tomorrow where we go to the campus and we meet together and we do breakouts. And so our work groups will get together and our team is going to be getting together for an hour. And so I've done this in the past because I have a whole set of games, actual board games and stuff
Nice.
like that, card games and everything. And it's so neat, Patrick, because I used to play I still play games, but as a child, my friends and I would play, and I would play with my family too. And we still play games. We get together and we play games. And I think that's so important to take something that you used to do, like you said, in childhood and do that. So tomorrow during our team breakout, my manager said, who wants to plan for our team breakout? What do we want? And I asked the question and I said, so is there something specific that we want to discuss, like work related, or do we want to make it fun and just, get to know each other? So I said, if you want to make it fun, I can bring a couple of games. So I've got one that plays 8 and it's called blank slate. So what you do is you have these they look like little slates, and you give each person a pen. It can play up to 8. And then you have these cards and you pull out the card and it has, like, for example, like blank potato. And then you can write in the word that, like, it could be mashed potato, sweet potato, whatever it is.
Right.
You come up with a word, and if you and you score points, if no one else gets that, you want to try to actually think of what someone else would come up with, but not to the point where everybody comes up with the same word. So it's very interesting. So if one other person comes up with the mashed potato, then you each get 3 points. If more than 2 people come up with the same word, then you get 1 point. So the key
Interesting.
is, so it's like, I want to think of something that maybe my friend will think of, but
Right.
or my coworker will think of. So it's pretty neat. So that's
cool.
a fun game. Yeah. So I'll bring that. And then there's another one called, Snatching Pairs. So it's a memory game. So we remember memory as a kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this takes it to, kids and adults can play this. That's what I like about cooperative type of games like this, or just friendly competition games. But it's basically you have, and it's got puns, so it's all pear related. So the pear fruit, but it's pears, PAIR, but pear and pear. So it's kind of cute. But
Right.
yeah, so you flip over the two cards, and in the middle they have these little squishy pears, and if you get and so the cards they have sets of colors that are the same. So if you get the same color, but the pair doesn't match, then you touch one of the pairs and you say matching color, and you have to be the first one, and you get a point with that. So, but it actually helps with your creativity, because you have to remember, you have to have good memory, and you have to have good creativity, and think about it and go, okay, that was the same color, but not the same pair. So you have to try to remember where it was. So it's pretty
amazing.
neat. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to kind of, exploring that, playing games together and stuff like that with my team, because you really get to, just, and it doesn't have to be work related. It can just be fun and
that helps.
Spark it.
And that helps the work relation.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It helps the work relationship. So that's great. I love that. So yeah. Well, thank you so much, Patrick, for sharing your insights today. Your experiences, your tips, and your expertise are sure to inspire my listeners and help spark more of that creativity in their life. So I appreciate it.
Excellent. I was happy to do that.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I look forward to having you back on the show sometime, and we can talk more about, your consulting business. I'd love to hear more about that and how you help individuals, how you help teams. And that would be great, because I think we could all use a little bit more of that creative spark in our world, for sure. So
I'd be happy to, Jackie.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you for taking some time to listen to this podcast episode today. Your support means the world to me. If you'd like to help keep the podcast going, you can share it with a friend or colleague, leave a heartfelt review, or offer a monetary contribution. Every act of support, big or small, makes a difference, and I'm truly thankful for you.